You're muted.
Welcome to Boatrek Live. I'm PJ. I'm here with Toddy, Trek on the Tube, Sean, and we're going to talk
Howdy.
about a very special episode of Star Trek Picard, season 2. I'm losing my mind. Season 2, episode 7, Monsters. And I thought it was going to be about Girardi like taking over the city, like Jason takes Manhattan, but Girardi takes Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not Manhattan, but yeah. But that only happens at the very end, and I don't know if you ever follow clips and stuff like that. That was the scene that was kind of given away, and Patrick Stewart released that scene as
Okay.
well because his wife is the singer in the in the lounge or whatever.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so the whole Girardi thing is like really irrelevant in this episode. It's really only addressed at the very end. Most of this episode is about going into Picard's mind and figuring out what kind of relationship he had with his mother. And in previous episodes, we got flashbacks to some kind of traumatic stuff going on with Picard. It looked like his father was hurting his mother. And in a way, he is because he's locking her away in a room instead of giving her proper medical help. But we find out that she's mentally ill. She has some kind of manic disorder where she escapes into like fantasy worlds, and she plays with her son Jean Luc as if she's like a child herself. And we finally get like the best thing I guess about this episode is we get some of those answers. But then again, it cuts off and it's like, well, that's not the end of it, but we'll find out in another episode. And it's like, no, if you're gonna address all this, let's figure out like what happened behind the door. Did he put the key in? Did he let her out? What happened then? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why finally go there and then just say, nah, we're still gonna tease it. I'm like, well, the tease leading up to it wasn't very good in the first place because
Because
now
they had other things to address. They had
oh,
Rios to address,
oh
right?
goodness. Before we get into that, what did you think of the whole flashback stuff? The whole the mind palace.
I'm not the biggest fan of like that concept in general. Like you say Mind Palace because we're referencing Sherlock, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't even know where I just got that from, and now yeah, I just
Yeah.
realized.
So like
I
even
don't
in
know why I said that.
shows,
They don't say that in the episode, but like a fake Laris goes in.
yeah, like even in
Talon, that's her name. Yeah.
Talon. Even in shows like Sherlock, where admittedly, like the Mind Palace episode, they do it very well. Even in those shows, I'm not the biggest fan of like addressing that kind of stuff. And like even when they address like Data's dreams and that kind of stuff, and I remember distinctly talking about that on like Starfleet Boy, and people were commenting, or maybe it was you, but people were commenting on how like accurate it is. Like it's an accurate depiction of how dreams are. But I'm just not a fan of that, so I didn't really care for like anything that was happening inside the mind of Picard.
It opens with like the beginning of it is him talking to a guy, and right away, I think it was leaked. I don't know if like I saw it somewhere and just dismissed it, but I was like, oh yeah, I think he's playing his father. But I was confused at the beginning because Picard wasn't addressing him as like, oh, dad or whatever. So I was like, maybe he's not. And then we get the revelation later. That actor who I'm not familiar with, I never got into Battlestar Galactica. I should. It's on Amazon, but he's a notable sci-fi actor. So I guess on that level, it was some fun seeing him there for other people. But for me, it was like, okay, this, and it's like I don't get why this is relevant. Even Picard brings it up at the end of the episode. Like, what relevance does this have to the story? Like it's like, yeah, really, what? It seems like it's gonna be so stupid and convoluted. Like, I don't really want to jump to like a judgment about the season before it's over, but it seems like it's one of these things where the more that's presented, the more questions I have. So a few questions get answered, but then a whole bunch crop up. So I'm
It's like the
like,
Hydra, but of questions.
and literally the only way to enjoy it in the moment, like the first time I watched it, I kind of just like, I won't question anything. I'll just absorb it, and then I'll think about everything that was either good or bad with it, and go back and be conscious of those things the second time I watch it. So I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I don't. I get the feeling that like everything that concerns um Picard's childhood, his mother, his father. I don't know if that's actually going to tie into the story in any way, or if it's just like they wanted to address this character's childhood in a way that hasn't been done before. It does seem a bit weird to like address that now. Like the character is what 90 or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And here's the thing, it's like he
but it
didn't
is what it
understand his
is.
father's motives at the time or something. Like he had blocked out the memory or something, or had a distorted kind of version of the memory in his
I
head
think the
where
idea
the
because
father was the villain.
we all came to the conclusion. I think that like we were thinking perhaps father's beating his mother, right? I think that's where my mind went.
When
And
really
so I
it's
think
actually the
that
mother actually striking at the father and the father having to restrain her.
yeah, but then
But
I guess it's like a more nuanced situation. But I think that like maybe the intent is Picard was feeling the same way. Like Picard had blocked out the memories because as a child he didn't understand like the mental health issues that his mother was having, and so he had just seen it as like father being mean to mother, right?
and they address these tunnels too. That he's like, if you would went in there with your mother and it rained, you would have died. And then at first, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, wait, did she go into the tunnels and just drown to death or something?" He locked the door. Like, what the fuck's going on? I was legitimately confused because the way they do it, for one thing, the way they built up this whole episode with the flashbacks from episode one, like giving us bits and pieces, like the thing from season one with the stutter stock footage they keep teasing us with, and then you get the whole thing, or at least like a good chunk of it, and you're like, the teases were bullshit because you're teasing. Why present to the audience? You're like, it's a trick. It's like literally like, we're gonna show you something. And even Patrick Stewart said himself about how these memories might not exactly be accurate. He even said that, the actor himself. I'm like, okay, well,
Mm.
that's a hint to maybe some of the memories are memories of his imagination or a different version of it. But they do, one good thing they do with the flashbacks is they show the version in the mother's head where like there's all kinds of CG effects and they're wearing like, there's royal regalia, is that a word? Uh, there's royal decorations or whatever around the house. You know, it's all in her head at that point. You
Mm.
get that, but then they go back to that same scene and you see it from like just the child's point of view, and it's like a kid with like an unstable adult, and it's like, and
Mm.
the father's like, Picard gets trapped or he gets stuck. The mother doesn't even care wherever she goes, right? And then the father's like, I've been looking for an hour. You've been looking for a whole hour. Is I doubt the place is that big, but like he's been looking for a whole hour. I mean, like that's a little much, but the fact that like basically the
Well,
father
maybe he
can't
didn't start with the
leave.
house. Maybe he started with like the vineyard. He went out
Yeah, well, yeah, it's
before
true. Yeah,
coming
maybe,
back.
but the father doesn't. What concerns me about it, the whole thing, is that like, is the father so old school that he won't consider professional help for his wife? That he would rather just like when she has an episode, literally restrain her and drag her off and lock her in a place? Like that seems. I can see why Picard saw his father as a villain, but to make his parents this kind of like, forgive the term, fucked up, it doesn't add anything to the character of any significant value, and I don't understand what it means to the story, and I have a feeling that it won't mean much or it won't make much sense. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I
But the guy
feel that your
playing his dad
feeling
is a
is
good actor. You
probably
know, he did
right.
a good.
I actually thought it
Yeah,
was Riker for like a hot second. I was like, what's that voice?
yeah.
And I was like, okay, no. Like the first few sentences that he says, I was like, do I recognize that voice? And then no, it was this guy that I don't think I've seen him in anything because I haven't watched Battlestar Galactica yet. I was going to. I was like ready to watch it, and then they released like a million new seasons of new Star Trek. So I
Oh
got
yeah.
busy with that.
I filmed that. I did that too. I watched the like premiere movie or whatever that was on, and and then get into the series later, and I never did. What I saw was good though. What I saw, I enjoyed, but I just for some reason,
Oh, I'm sure it's good.
what happened was I got
It's
into the
praised
Expanse
constantly.
instead, and I
Yeah.
was like,
Well, there
Expanse,
you go.
Star Trek, that's enough sci-fi for me. I'm like Picard. I'm like not too much. I'm not like a big sci-fi dude. I'm really critical of a lot of it, but a lot of it
Mm.
is there is quite a lot of good stuff out there. What do you think about Rios and just like I don't give a fuck about fucking with time. It's all a bunch of gobbledygook anyway. The story doesn't matter. Nothing matters. And even fucking the characters at some point, Seven at the end is like, well, we brought back the Boar Queen, and now she could grow to have the power to assimilate the fucking Earth. I think we might have fucked up, dying. It's like it's all so like there's no stakes. Like nothing feels real or like it's like whatever. It's like
Well,
they decided whatever. So why the fuck should I care?
admittedly, like, and
Sorry, I'm
I
being
know,
so negative, but this is
I
how it
know,
is, people.
I know it's useless to. It's not productive to look at a show and be like, yeah, but they should have done this. Like, it's not productive to do that. But I will take just a second to say that from the moment they decided to bring the Borg Queen back, it was like, okay, so a Starfleet crew would have at least two people with the Borg Queen at all times, and it probably wouldn't be like the psychotic murdering person that has already had her mind um you know taken,
Yeah,
Girardi. Like, it would have to be either, if you want to leave Girardi, you got to leave it with someone else. And like when Picard decides to leave, it's like that is just nuts. That doesn't feel like a Picard thing to do, but it doesn't feel like a Starfleet thing to do. So from the get go, when the show decides to do that, it's like, okay, so I don't feel the weight of anything that's happening, and I'm also trying to like ignore the fact that we know season 3 is coming and that all of these other cast members are coming back. So like clearly everything is gonna get fixed. But like even without taking the real world knowledge that we have, it's like you're looking at the show and it's like, okay, there's gonna be a fix. I don't know if it's Q that's gonna like snap his fingers and fix everything at the end. I don't know if they're just gonna timey wimely explain it away. Like they manage to fix time. Like there's no weight to what's happening.
yeah,
But at least if they had done like from the get go a thing where like the Bull Queen is in the past, and I know it's very First Contact. I know it's very that one
foreshadowed.
episode of Enterprise. Um, but they could have done just like the Bull Queen is assimilating the 21st century, and we have to stop them. And we know it's going to get fixed, but there still is at least like the weight of the menace that it is. This was just a
Yeah,
bit weird.
uh, I, it's not happening yet totally, but I think the big picture is here that
But they used it as a
it's
sting, like as a like cliffhanger twice now in two different episodes. This is worse than like, is it Spock? Is he coming in the shuttle? You remember that?
that's a good point because the Girardi thing ended the last episode, right?
Yeah.
And it
It's
just
like,
ends
ooh,
this episode. It's just an end. Well,
same thing.
Seven and Rafi make reference to it, and that's the end of the episode. But it's like I would have actually preferred in retrospect. I'm like, what? Why? I would have preferred some Girardi stuff as opposed to like, okay, finding out that Picard's mother was ill and Picard's father was clearly not well either because so
Well, he was handling.
he comes from a very dysfunctional family and it could and I know like I don't own the franchise and whatever hasn't been explored in canon yet is all up for grabs. I understand that. But the thing in my head was that like his parents were just old school. Like the most advanced thing I think you said it or somebody else said it. The most advanced thing they would have had in their house is a microwave. Like you know what I mean? Like
Well,
that would be the limit of their like because they don't even
is
have
that is that is
suppression
that the
systems.
is that their parent? Was that his parents that were like that? Because like
His father was old. I know his father was old
because his
school.
brother was like that. Like his
Yeah,
brother was
like
like, I'm not having like an automated bottling system, or like he wasn't having any of that. He was like, we're doing the vineyard old school. I don't want no robots spraying, like water on the vines or whatever it is.
and you know what? we even in this day and age, we look at some people who, now I'm not saying me personally or you, like there is a kind of prejudice against people who still like just no electricity, very old school way of living, the
Mm,
basics. And it's like, who cares? They're just living their life. They're not bothering anybody. It's like,
mm.
I don't know how advanced Amish people are allowed to be nowadays. Or like, I've seen some reality shows where like it's I don't know how real it is, but where they go beyond like the Amish life and see how, what that's like. And
Okay.
it's fun to know that even people in the 24th century would still uh, make products in a traditional way because there's something special and
Yes.
about that, as opposed to like just replicated factory made stuff. Sorry, I have
Yes.
to plug in my laptop to
I
do that.
do think that that is what makes there's a lot of discussions right now about like on the vineyard, like who owns it, are there employees, what's going on, like how does it work? And I do really think that the whole concept of like a traditional French vineyard in like the 25th century is all about tradition and culture. And so it would make sense to have like everything be done manually as it was done back then. Because if you're gonna do it, why do it halfway? No, I understand that an argument can be made like, just watering the plants. Well, I mean, come on. Like everyone knows how to water a plant manually. Why don't we just have it automated? Because this is not the kind of thing. This is not the tradition that's important. The tradition that's important is uh I guess the harvesting of the grapes, the bottling itself. So I can get that. I can get like where the arguments can come in. But it makes
I just
sense that
don't.
there would be people, especially people that are so close to like a certain culture or a certain aspect of their culture, that would very much enjoy taking things to like a traditional level.
Yeah,
But that doesn't apply to medical care.
who's that?
So like if you have a family member
Exactly.
that's really in trouble or really going through like some sort of trauma or has some sort of like mental health issues, you're not going to apply the same kind of logic to that. It's like you need to take this person or at least bring help to the house if you don't want to take them somewhere.
And very well, we could get a later in another episode of flashback that shows her being taken away to a place or something. Very well, that could be the
Mm,
case, but it seems like a very odd environment for the time. I'm not saying everything's peachy. Like, you're still gonna have family issues, but I mean, it shatters my little illusion of the family being like just a good traditional family. Didn't really have like there are believe it or not, a lot of people do deal with mental illness. This is a fact, like more than ever before, because the society's just fucked anyway. So how could you
mm,
not? But there are a lot of families out there, and I've witnessed this because my family was so dysfunctional. I would really take notice of families that got along and like listen to each other and talked at the dinner. Like that to me was like, I feel like I'm watching a Full House. Like I don't get
yeah.
like how you people are so nice to each other. It's sickening. And they actually, I have like cousins who come from like really like loving good families where like the father and son like hug and stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Because my family was so like bleh, fuck you and you're stupid and you're worthless, and like
Okay,
it's
so
that
my
kind of.
family wasn't like that.
I don't
And it
need to see
was
Picard. I don't need to see Picard's family in my in my memories. You know what I mean? Like that's
mm.
what it's like. It's like
Well,
Picard's
perhaps they're doing
like.
that so that you can
I'm not saying my
relate
mother was like
somehow.
that. I'm not saying, but you know what I'm
No, no,
saying.
of
Like
course, but like
I
perhaps
my
it's
parents did my parents did have problems. Let's just say that.
they want you to relate somehow to the character.
I don't know. It's just it
They're trying
seems
to
like there's a
humanize him, I guess, right? After turning him into a
that's another
cyborg.
that's a slippery slope right there. They say that too. Like we have to give our characters traumatic backstories to humanize them. It's like you know what
There are humans that there are
people who
humans
had
that don't
normal
go through trauma
upbringings
too.
and have very little issues were actually fucking lucky in life. Let's just say that. Like
Yeah.
if you're somebody who's had a good family and a good upbringing, and you got a good head on your shoulders, and bravo, because you've got it made. Believe it or not. But we see less and less of those people in TV shows and movies. People always got to be like fucked up, and it's getting tiresome. Kim Wexler, for example, from Better Call Saul. Not to bring in Better Call Saul or nothing, but she's an
It's
example
coming
of
soon.
a relatively normal person who just gets caught up in the wrong.
Yeah, she's kind of
Who
thrust into like an environment that isn't normal, I guess.
and and the thing is, they hint to her not having the greatest mother, but it's nothing so messed up that like she's like doing her lawyer thing, and then there's like flash, 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 flash of this fucking traumatic thing, and they do that in Picard. They've done it a good few episodes now where it's like flash, 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 and it's like this ends up becoming like nothing visually. It's just diarrhea on
Well,
the fucking screen.
okay, let's
Sorry.
use this small, quick tangent about Better Call Saul. You mentioned Better Call Saul. We're going to use it as one
Yeah.
example. Jimmy's brother, the mental health issues that Jimmy's brother goes through. All right. For someone that doesn't know what we're talking about, first of all, watch Better Call Saul. But like just the way that show handled that mental health, and I understand that they didn't do it over like one episode, or it isn't just a couple of flashbacks. It is like a 2 or 3 season long story arc that has like a climax and a conclusion, and there's like a whole lot of history going into it. But the way that they address that, I feel, is like it's it's a more interesting and more a valid way of addressing you know health issues. He doesn't have like social anxiety. He has like a very peculiar condition that he thinks that he has, or whatever it is, But
It's a particular psychological disorder where
yeah,
you think that
he has a
you
specific
think that there's
condition.
radiation killing you everywhere, anywhere that electricity or UV rays or sunlight or any kind of energy is generated. Like your goal in
So I don't
life
know
is
if
to be
that's
completely
real. Is that
isolated from.
real? No, that's not real. They
I
made
looked
them.
it up and it's rare, but I guess people. I mean, people could. There's a lot of different types of
Okay, well, it all stems from like
mental
a
things. Like you could
yeah,
think the air is toxic and be afraid to go outside.
yeah.
There's all
In
kinds
any
of
case,
it's very
whether or not
specific anyway, but they deal with
whether
it
or
in
not
such a
it's real or
delicate
not,
way, like you said.
exactly, it's dealt with so well. It's addressed from many different angles, from like different people that have their own, I guess, different agendas. There's like the other lawyers that are working with him that are part of his firm that need to address this in their very professional way. There's his brother that's like very caught up and passionate and emotional about the whole situation. And he has his opinion about like what's going on. So I think that's a more interesting thing rather than just trying to like flash scenes at us that it almost look like uh it almost looked like I don't know, like a horror thing, like what was that shitty ass movie, the last X-Men movie that came out,
Uh,
the one
Dark
that's not about
Phoenix.
the no, the other one that's not really the X-Men, the kids.
Oh, the crap one. Um,
Yeah,
I can't remember. I know what you're talking about. The girl from Game of Thrones is in it,
yeah, all of
and
that.
and it was filmed
Is
like
it
5 years
Inhumans? No,
before it was
that's not it.
released.
Inhumans is I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's how, like, that's the vibe that I got from it, because it's in this chateau and everything is dark and you don't really understand what's going on, and it's like it's I don't know, it's complicated for nothing.
I will
And
say that
it's not being very delicate in the way it's addressing all of this.
I know, yeah, it. Hold on 1 second because I'll read his comment first. I will say my
New
enthusiasm for this
Mutants.
season has decreased a lot since the season 3 teaser. But all I want is the time travel to season 3. I feel you, brother. I feel you. I just wanted to get into the for a second, Rios. Like it's comical. Like at least that part of the episode is entertaining in a comical way because at this point I care about as much. I care as much about the timeline as the characters do, and I'm kind of fine with that at this point.
Hmm.
But even when they're like, he's like, he lets her know that there's some future shenanigans going on when she sees the tool being beamed in, right? And then he's like, here you go, use it. And she's like, duh. And it's like, what am I, like, what? Am I, like, I'm literally think I'm missing something when I'm watching it. I'm like, did I miss, like, a beat where he explains what that is and how to use it? Or does she just assume, like, future thing pointed at
Hit
the
the button,
head
yo.
because it's a brain
Beep.
thing? So it's like, okay, sure. That's funny in its own way. And then it gets to a point where he's like, I got a surprise for you guys. Beam onto the ship. And it's like, why? What? It's funny. I got to admit, I'm kind of chuckling at
They're
it
not
because
playing
it's
it
like,
for
I'm
laughs, though.
shaking my head too. I'm like, this is so fucking stupid. And he's even quoting Kirk from Voyage Home. Like the live action, the Trek, or at least the second season of Picard, has gotten into a lot of lower deck style Trek self-referential kind of stuff. Where in the second episode, Q's saying like his speeches are episodes of TNG, like all
Yeah,
good
he's
things
like
and
naming
yesterday's
episodes.
Enterprise, and
Yeah, they're making it very meta.
it's
Picard says
winking at
something
the
about
camera a
four
little too
lights,
much,
doesn't he?
dude. What? Who?
Picard says something about four lights, doesn't he?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. But it's winking too much at the camera, and now you have a thing where they're doing it Back to the Future style, where okay, we're just gonna have the same actor play variations on an ancestor or a relative, and have them look basically exactly like Brent Spiner, which now is such a thing
Yeah.
with Trekkies that it seems like the creators think we don't mind if they do that with just fucking everybody now. Soji
It
or
was a
Issa
joke.
Briones.
I guess it was a joke with Brent Spiner. By
Yeah,
extension, I can accept that for Easter Briones because I guess considering it's like it's data
that makes a
family,
little
data
more sense. Yeah,
adjacent,
yeah.
I can accept that. I'm not okay with the Laris thing. Like I think
Yes,
she's an
that's the
amazing
thing I was gonna
actor.
get. Now they're doing with fucking Orla Brady, and it's like,
I think she's amazing. All right, she's an amazing actor. She's beautiful. She's talented.
why do your
But
ancestors have to look exactly the same? It takes me out of
yeah,
it, dude. I don't
why
know. It's a
why
stupid
we
criticism I would suspect for some people because you've seen Back to the Future, they've done it in that, but that's like meta. That's very meta. Back to the Future is like a joke. In a good way. It's a great trilogy,
mm.
but it's a comedy. It's not meant to be like dramatically serious.
Okay, well,
Picard
does it?
is, and it's winking at the camera, and it's not being serious about itself. And I know they want to bring levity into it, but it's just fucking too much.
So I feel like it
I'm too
feels
much. I'm sorry.
cheap to do that. To me,
Okay, yeah.
when you bring back the same actor to do a different thing, it's like, okay, you didn't go out and find another actor. And I don't like that. I'm like, go find another actor. The whole Brent Spiner thing. Okay, so there's a whole debate about does Brent Spiner even need to be in this season, and does Issa Briones need to be in this season? I don't think so. I don't think that their characters are useful at all
Yeah.
as it stands. But fine, you want to do that? It's a joke within the Star Trek community. We have the Sung thing, ha ha ha. We bring back like Brent Spiner and he does that. But it's like for this whole Laris Talon thing, just pick another actor. Like, and then I don't know, and then like the whole I don't know.
And she's
That's
like
how I
with
would.
the air, and it's like I'm actually Romulan. Facepalm. It's like the Picard facepalm with the show all the fucking time. I mean, it astounds me, and this is why it's so different from season one. I didn't like season one, but it's different in season one because, uh, in a way, like the beginning of season one got me excited, but the beginning of season two really got me excited, and I was like, oh, this is if they can keep this up, then wow, we got something going. And then episode two, good. Episode three, not as good, but I was still enjoying it. And I'm no like four, five, six, seven, and I'm trying not to get into that mindset of like not liking it. I'm like looking for the good stuff, and there is good stuff. I like the banter between Seven and Raffi. I mean, there's a degree of entertainment that wasn't there in season one. Season one was a little too self serious. This goes like the other direction, but a little too far. So like, I'm kind of enjoying lambasting it. Really, to be honest, like I got to find some enjoyment. I mean, I can't just sit there and not want to talk about how absurd a lot of this stuff is. We still haven't talked about the Guinan thing.
The Guinan thing.
That's
Well, I mean, okay, so here's the thing. I'm not a fan of this Guinan. I just don't like it. I don't like. Now, the thing is, I'm too in the dark with what's happening because some people are telling me this Guinan is supposed to be different. She's not supposed to know about Picard. She's supposed to be She's more bitter, and it's justifiable because this is another timeline, right? This is the past of the pseudo mirror universe that we came from,
That makes
and
no
then there's other.
sense.
And then you look at it and you're like, okay, but the punk on the bus guy is the same, and they've already addressed that like this is the turning point. So like they will in 3 days or whatever it is, like because this season takes place in 3 days, right? So like
Well,
this
it's
they're
taken
saying,
place in just a 24-hour period so far, around
oh, okay,
there.
basically, okay.
Yeah.
So what they from what I understand, the way it works is this past is the same for both for like the prime timeline that we knew and the pseudo marinos that we saw. There will be a tipping point where like it branches off and kind of solidifies uh like the horrible timeline into one or solidifies the one that we know. So to me, like this Guinan, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that she doesn't know Picard. I'm sorry, I can't work it into like how it works into logic. And also, even if she were a different Guinan that didn't know Picard, people don't fundamentally change in every aspect of how they are. Like this is a completely different character. It's not a it's not a oh Guinan has lived through different shit. No, this is like she's completely different. She doesn't address or deal with things the same way. She doesn't talk the same. She doesn't act the same. She doesn't think the same. And why is she so goddamn important in her species? She's like the what is she like the queen of her species or something? That she's holding a bottle of the peace treaty between the Q continuum and the Elorian species. Like Guinan was just an Elorian, right? The same way I'm just a human. It just so happens that their people are very enlightened. It just so happens that their people are very intelligent. And I'm not saying that maybe Guinan was like more intelligent than other Elorians. Maybe she was kinder than other Elorians. We've seen other Elorians in Deep Space Nine and in friggin' oh, what is it? Generations. Like these guys aren't necessarily cool, right? So she's maybe better, but why is she so important that she has a bottle of the peace treaty? It's
It
weird.
she is it's safe to assume she is a known member of her species. Like she is probably famous or well known amongst her people because of her travels, like for the hundreds of years. And who knows how many other Elorians did that? Maybe like her and a select few only kind of did that thing. We don't know. But here's the thing about uh, the actress Ida, I think her name is. Correct me if I'm wrong. But she was in the Ready Room, and I'm like, I'm listening to her talk. I'm like, why couldn't this actor's personality been injected into the Guinan character? Because she has like a calm and a soothing quality about her as an actress.
Mm.
Well, I say actors, gender neutral now, anyway. But
Yeah,
so
I
if I
do
say
too.
actor, I mean just general. And it's almost like don't say actress. It's like saying stewardess. No, I'm just joking.
Well,
But
quick
do you
parentheses.
agree? Have you
I
seen
asked
her?
that.
Have
Quick
you seen her off
parentheses.
camera?
No, I haven't.
Okay, okay.
I asked if we should say actress or actor, and like for like both, and the response that I got was like some women prefer that we say actor, and some of them don't give a shit. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I'll just say actor for everything, and we're fine.
But
Robbie says it's
I just wanted to say she acknowledged in the Ready Room like about the different direction they were going. Like she was conscious of like this is a hot-headed, angry version of Guinan who's
mm,
at a time in her life, and I get that that's what you want in the story, but you have to somehow incorporate that like Whoopi Goldberg ish Guinan wisdom that she brought to the character. And the actor did do the research and watch all the episodes, but it's like she had to do what the script required and the
yeah.
direction required. And I think that was the wrong direction because she's so unlikable and such an abrasive, rude character. I'm just gonna say I don't care. Like defend how she's not just like. And you could say, well, she's upset and angry. It's like, but a lot of people are upset and angry, but they don't like the FBI. The guy who comes down, who's the FBI agent. I thought he was going to be like a Q who was fooling her because she did the thing where she like can sense
Isn't she a
the Q.
time? Isn't he a time agent? This guy.
I have no idea who said that. I don't know. They didn't say it in
Twitter.
this episode.
Twitter
Or
said
Twitter?
that.
Okay, well, it could be because
Because
there's a.
he's already played a time agent, this
Oh,
actor in
really?
Star Trek. And he's called Agent Wills or something, and I think he's from like
He's been in Star Trek before as a time agent. In
yes,
Voyager?
I think so. Yeah, I think
I
that's
think it
the
was in
thing.
Voyager, yeah.
I'm
Because I
gonna go find
recognized
that.
him, but I
I'm gonna go
recognized him
find that
from
thing.
a
I'm gonna go
show
find
called The
that
Shield.
tweet somewhere.
He's in a really good show called The Shield. He did. I watched him. That's where I know him from.
Maybe I can't find the tweet anymore. But anyway,
But when he comes down, she's like, "Get out!" And it's like the sign says "open." She could have said, "Well, I'm sorry about that, but we're closed." But she's like, "On a Trump sign. What do you want?" It's like this is like this is all he knew how to do with the characters. Like angry, angry, upset. Even like the first few lines, I think, when Picard goes and meets her at the bar again. What? No hello and hi. She's like, just take it down. Like, why can't you just be relaxed? And she does. There's a part where she's explaining the cockamamie story about like Hugh. Like, I get there's a
yeah,
backstory. That's been
the
established.
resonance. Yeah, that's cool.
But here's one of the biggest problems about Guinan as a character, and I love Guinan. I love Whoopi Goldberg's portrayal of Guinan. But when you introduce her into the show and you say, we're from a species who knew about the Borg, we're from a species who had significant contact with the Q continuum, why isn't this in the history books and why isn't there pre-knowledge of it? It's a can of worms that like we ignore as Trek fans. Like, the Elorians have been known of since like Kirk's time, and they've had significant encounters with both the Borg and the Q. And what did they did they just like not say anything and keep it all a secret, or like? So you do get that thing where she's telling a story that Picard didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know this thing about the Q. You mean to tell me you were Guinan's friend for all of this time, after the events of Q-Who and Q-less, or whatever, the one where he loses his powers, and you didn't like. There wasn't any kind of like report. Like, wouldn't Starfleet be very interested in Guinan's stories? Like, about the Borg and the Q. Like, when you actually think about it, it's like, I go back to what you said one time, dude. It gets to be so much canon gobbledygook you got to keep track of. Fucking reboot it and start from scratch. Like, really,
I mean,
when all of this era is said and done, literally, that's what you do. Don't do a Kelvin. Don't do another timeline thing. Literally, just go back and just start from scratch.
yeah,
Because
like
it's all so convoluted.
I've always been very proud that Star Trek has managed to like perpetuate and continue its story for like the longest time. But there does come a point where it's like, okay, do we?
I'm sorry, you read that. You meant to read that comment earlier. Did you read
Yeah,
that?
he's gonna say, yeah, okay, we'll get into this. Robbie says it's interesting to me that season really dropped off as soon as Terry left, and left Akiva to write it, so that Terry could focus on season 3. And I was like, I didn't know that. And so I'm looking at the Wikipedia here. Terry is credited with the story for like episode 1 and 2, and then he's no longer on the show. And then it's just like random writers, different names for every episode that's coming in, like for the rest of season 2. So Terry did write, the 2 first ones. I guess he show ran the rest, but he's focusing on writing season 3. I feel like Terry's like a TNG fan, Terry Matalas, and he just wants his TNG reunion, and that's what he's focusing on. And it's almost like he said, I don't give a shit. Y'all are gonna fix it anyway with your timelines, so do whatever the hell you want. I'm doing my thing.
Oh my god.
It could be
dude.
correct. We'll see. I guess this will only hold up. This theory will only hold up if, like, when season 3 comes out and it's all written by Terry Matalas and it's all fantastic. That
That's
would work.
exactly what I was gonna talk. I was gonna say, like, if they sabotaged, basically, I don't know, I'm getting into Beastie Boys references. If they sabotaged season 2 to give it like a good bang up, like actually well fucking worth it season 3, that's like the perfect TNG send off, then I won't care about any of this. I won't care about season 1. I won't care about season 2.
You'll just celebrate season 3 for what it is.
But dude, I don't know if they're gonna let this fly and think like this is good enough. And it's like season 3 could be good, but my faith is dwindling. and like, not in like, I still like Lower Decks and Prodigy, and I'm looking back in Discovery season 4 with fond memories because of this shit. Because I mean, really, I didn't expect to be so negative about season 2. I really fooled myself thinking, well, they're getting it right now, Terry Metalis, and it makes sense now to know that like
I take blame for
he
that.
kind of fucked off on this season. It's true. Granted, he did it for could be good reasons. If season 3 ends up being crap, I'm just gonna be like, you fucked up everything for what reason? Just to end the legacy on such a down note. And of course, there will be fans that are gonna like it, and like, you know, the people who like season 2
The
think it's
fan
great, and
response for season 2 has been very, very positive. Or at least like in the circles that I'm in and what I'm seeing online. Like, except for perhaps Red Letter Media, that I think they're more like having a laugh about it. They're a bit jaded about it.
yeah.
But other than them, I think like the fan response has been pretty good. The thing is, I'm looking at these episodes, right? Like, so Robbie, you haven't seen this episode that we're talking about. My official review is that if you don't watch it and you just watch the next one, you probably wouldn't realize that you haven't seen this one. Like, I don't feel like you're gonna miss any single thing. It won't. It like your mind, your brain will be able to fill in the like two blanks that you missed in this episode, which are basically Rafi and Seven find out that Agnes is doing that, and the other one is Brios brought Doctor and her son on the ship. Like, those are the two only things that actually happen in this episode. Nothing else happens. Like, even the cringe ass scream that had me wondering what the hell I was watching from Guinan didn't amount to any single thing. Like, there's nothing in this episode, and that's my big problem with, I think, and that was my problem with Discovery season 4, and that is my problem with this season. It's like most of what I'm watching is just things that have been filmed. I am just watching things that have been filmed and they've been put together and they're showing me them.
Yeah.
And it's not enough for you to say, "Hey, look, but it's Picard," or "Hey, look, it's Jerry Ryan." Yeah, I love Jerry Ryan. It's not enough.
So
You gotta say, "Eh."
the
But then I
summoning of
can't
Q.
hate it though. Sorry,
But
we'll get into that.
what
But I
did you
just want
think
to
of the
finish with
actual
this.
summoning of Q? Because you mentioned the shriek.
I,
There's a
I
funny
just want to
part where
finish with
it's
my
like,
rant. Can I do that?
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Okay,
cut
I
you
just
off.
want to
Go ahead.
finish by saying
Yes,
I
I like your
can't
rant. Go ahead.
I can't sit here and actively be angry at the season or like
Yeah,
Discovery season 4, because at the end of the day, it's not bringing me anything to be so mad about that I'm like, they've ruined Star Trek. I don't believe in that argument that like Star Trek is dead. It's just like I'm looking at it and it's like it's not much. It just is. And so I'm like, there are things that I enjoy, like there are things that I'll pick out and be like, oh, I like this, oh, I like that. But nothing is, the problem is it's not that worthy of my attention. That's my big conclusion, I guess.
and if Akiva is the big man on campus for Strange New Worlds, then I fucking worry about that. And you know what? Different Trek shows at this point are they're different flavors of in the ice cream shop. You know what I mean? Like, they're not, none of them are exactly alike. I mean, none of them is a copy of the other. Like, Discovery is different from Picard, and Picard is different from Lower Decks. I like that. I like
So
that variety. But it I'm starting to get into that habit of looking at like this whole thing about Terry Metalis left and Akiva now is like, it's like, okay, I'm worried about this guy. I shouldn't be
so
worried about a guy. You know what I mean? Like a
Akiva's not
stupid
taking
freak.
care of Strange New Worlds though. They brought in a guy called Henry, what's his name? Henry Alonso Myers. Okay, so Henry Alonso Myers is the guy that came on stage at the Strange New Worlds panel that we just saw, and they basically they set him up and explained to us that he's lead writer and he's lead executive. Like, he's the hands-on executive that's going to be leading Strange New Worlds. So Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman, I think, are kind of like business heads, but they're no longer hands on. You know what I mean?
And you know what? I'm not criticizing these guys like Kurtzman and Akiva. They're making their money. They're not bad business people in no
No, they're,
way, shape, or
they're fucking
form.
good business people, I think. Yeah.
But sometimes producers think they're creatives, and they are not creatives. Sometimes actors think they are creatives in terms of storytellers and writers. They are sometimes, and
Hmm.
it's a type of delusional thinking where they have to actually make a
Some
thing
can
with the
do
right.
everything.
I know, but there are some out there who have to actually make the thing, get the shitty negative response from everybody, and say, okay, I'm gonna hover above it all, and let like the people who fucking know every detail about Trek, and on top of that, are good actual storytellers and writers. Because you can't be one or you can't be one or the other. You can be a great storyteller and then miss all the minutia of the
Hmm.
Trek world and piss people off that way.
Well, they
Or
need a
you could
blend,
be
don't
like,
they need like a mix
you
of
need
them
a great
both.
blend. That's a true thing. It's not easy. I wouldn't imagine like there are that many like brilliant writers who are like, I love Star Trek more than anything.
Hmm.
There are probably people out there who love sci-fi and Trek is a part of it, but it's good to get the hardcore fans who also know what's been done, what can we borrow from, but not beat to death. Like this whole concept of self-referential stuff, like saying names of TNG episodes with Q, and Rio saying, "What is it? I'm from Chile, but only work in outer space." I'm like Rio saw the movie Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home and is referencing the actual movie. It's like I get it, it's for fans, but fuck, dude, it's like I guess at this point, if you're gonna take me out of it, you might as well go all the way. I mean, and you're right about like I can. It looks on the surface like I hate it, but I'm finding joy in not bashing it, but like just looking at how silly it is. You can do that with a lot of older Trek, but
Oh yeah.
the difference was they really fucking knew how to tell a tight story, dude. Stories were tight back in the day, you know. Like now, it's like everything's just dragged out.
Well,
By the way,
it's
can I just? Oh, wait, you say your thing. I just want to go through the timeline before we like kind of. Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
Older Trek has this advantage of like they can tell a really tight story and it can be really good, but they can also screw it up and have like the most goofiest thing that you just mock.
Yeah,
But next week they might tell a tight story again.
a good. Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it's like
we're like
they
that
might
guy.
they
We're
might
like
have
that guy from what's that guy who pitch meeting guy? He's like that's tight.
oh, okay. Okay,
I'm sorry.
the
I'm
guy with
sorry. I fucked
the
it up.
big
I'm
eyes on
sorry.
the
I fucked you
thumbnail.
up. Yeah.
No, it's like older Trek. Like the episodic Trek is like I don't like this story. It's really goofy. It doesn't work. It's going to be in the Hall of Fame of garbage Trek, la di da. But the next episode might be like the best thing you've ever seen
Yeah.
because inspiration struck or whatever. Here though, if you really start dragging your feet in the mud because you're not finding the right footing for your story or it's just not working or the way that you're portraying the characters, it's like you're screwed. You've screwed yourself for your whole goddamn run. And unless you can really like fix it in the finale, which is not really a trend that modern Star Trek seems to do, fixing their shows and finales. Like Discovery season 4, I felt kind of like managed to save its entire season with its finale, but you didn't like it, I think.
No,
Um,
I thought it was a decent ending. I mean, it was
okay, I think it worked better than
I
the
say
rest of the
season 4 is the
seasoning.
most coherent story they've
Yeah,
told. The
that's true.
problem was with it was just stretched too thin. That's all it
Yeah.
was.
This one is not coherent and it's quite stretched, even though there's nothing happening in it.
Exactly. It's like this. Like that's why I say like this. Looking back in Discovery, I'm like at least they had their shit together in terms of what they knew they wanted to do, and it's a fact. Like they had it planned. It was like a planned season. It's just it could have been done in 8 episodes as opposed to fucking
Yeah.
13. But it's the same thing with Picard. Season and in episode 3, it's in the morning in Los Angeles, right? And it's in the nighttime in Le Bar, France. In episode 4, it's still like the morning, maybe afternoon. In episode 5, it's still the afternoon. I assume it's the afternoon at this point. In episode 6, we finally get to the night, the evening of that fucking day. So we've gone from episode 3 to episode 6, and we're still in the same night. We're still in the same, like 12-hour period. And the only reason you never see Le Bar France in the daytime is because when Girardi and the Borg Queen aren't there, they don't show that portion. So when we're in the next day now in episode 7, we're back in the dark and France, so we're like never seeing France in the daylight except in flashbacks. But it is keeping continuity in that sense. Is that like if you binge it, it's all just seems like one big long day you're going through. But in terms of a
They get
weekly,
a lot done in a
like
day.
I know, and it's like
I can't get that much done.
But here you got the here's what it's stuffed with, the whole ice thing. Rios gets taken away. Sure, he can meet the doctor and he can have a thing with the doctor. You didn't need the whole getting arrested and then, and it's like you could have totally gotten away with that, like did away with that and still had the relationship with the doctor if you wanted to do that with Rios. There was a whole lot of Borg Queen convincing Jurati how worthless she is, which I fucking hated. Like, in every permutation of the word of everything, you will be alone. And I'm like, oh my god, there's so much of this. So a lot of it is like filler, and it feels like the story is moving. If you're watching it like it twice the speed, but it's like it's just so. And what have we learned in the last 3 episodes? The launch has got to happen. Renee's got to feel better. Mission accomplished. Then Picard gets hit by a car. Then we have to go into his mind to find out about his messed up childhood. And Rios takes a family on board a starship. Prime directive or temporal directive be damned. And then the most exciting thing that happened in the episode actually was Guinan and Picard getting arrested. I was like, yes! I'm rooting for whoever's against the main characters. I'm actually also rooting against the main characters.
I'm also not a fan of like the chosen one.
I want the Borg Queen to assimilate the whole city, and then that's what comes from the temporal thing at the beginning of the season. Remember, you have and they're like, we're from the timeline where you went back and fucked everything up by taking Jurati and the Borg Queen back. And this is a causality loop we're trying to fucking mend, and that's how it's going to work out. Maybe
that'd be interesting. I'm not a fan of like the chosen one kind of plot thing, and I'm not like I know that we all have like a deep, profound respect for Jean-Luc Picard, and I think it's been like it's known that the guy has been important and has like very wildly impacted the galaxy in his time as like Starfleet captain. I thought that they were going a little overboard with like the whole "you got to save the universe again, Jean-Luc" in season 1, and then in season 2 here they're pushing that like even further with like his family. His whole line is so important that like an alien envoy has to be checking him out through time, and I'm like, checking his ancestors out through time. I'm like, oh my god, this is too much. Can't people just be people? Like, we already have like Spock and like the Spock family, which is like a thread throughout all of Star Trek. Like, we don't need a Skywalker family in Star Trek. Like, I don't need that. I mean, so I have quarrels with like these concepts that are in Picard all the time, and so like it's a struggle for me to just like, I guess, keep a straight face or just like look at it and be like appreciative of it, because I'm like, this isn't my jam. Like, they're doing all of the things that I do not want them to do. And I know that I don't own Star Trek. I'm not here to say this is good and this is not. But at the end of the day, it's difficult to appreciate when it's like, okay, you're doing this. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of time travel. All right. I'm not a fan of like the whole designated kind of like hero thing that the chosen one thing. I'm just not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of like doing episodes that specifically take place inside the head of something. I'm not a fan of like when things are too cryptic, like, and they end up not making much sense. Like, I agree that sometimes Q is cryptic, but he's also very much on top of what he's doing. Like, he's never just gone. And here it's very bizarre. I know that he might be sick or something. I would prefer a much more straightforward plot where it's like, you know what, Renee Picard is going to go to Europa. She's going to find a microbe, and it's going to set off like a chain of events that will push the Earth into becoming better. If she's not on that rocket, Duke McCannon will be on the rocket, and Duke McCannon is like a horrible, terrible kind of like fascist thinking motherfucker. And if he finds this thing, then he will push the world into like the horrible mirror universe adjacent thing. And so it's like, okay, we need to help Renee be happy and be strong enough to like board this thing so that she can help the Earth, prosper. And we can push away this guy he, and then you could tie into like the ice thing, like this guy he's been funding ice, or he's funded by ice. I don't know how the fuck it works, like he's connected to that, and like that seems simpler. Maybe it's too basic, but at the end of the day it would just work better for me.
It felt like the ice thing and the Girardi and not Girardi, Seven and Rafi kind of running around for a lot of these hours in the day. It's like we need to have the characters do something, and we don't really know what they can do. So we'll have a bunch of time where Rios is out of commission in prison, and we need a rescue there, like the hospital rescue in Star Trek 4, but dragged out, not interesting. And it's like, oh my god. I think the intention is good behind. Okay, we're gonna put Spiner in there as Soong. We're gonna have Picard's family really be like important in history and like central in like humanity and whatnot, and Q and Guinan and this and that, and thinking like stuffing all these ingredients. It's like trying to make a great meal by just putting a bunch of like everything, like bacon and cheese and just
it's like, what do you
everything
like?
in there, and
I
thinking,
like ice
oh,
cream, I
that's a
like bacon.
masterpiece.
Yeah, it's like, I like this, I like that, I like this. Yeah, okay, but you can't just all blend it together and eat it.
And Akiva Goldsman said, I said this before. Akiva Goldsman mentioned that, like, the whole thing about putting Brent Spiner as Soong and having the Soong person in there is adding cohesiveness to the universe. I'm like, all of this, what you're doing with Guinan and Soong and the whole Star Trek 4 meets First Contact thing, which I've said 1,000 times, like it's a formula I think they think works just by doing it, but like if you don't have a compelling story and compelling characters, it doesn't matter. And just making your characters angry and trauma filled doesn't automatically make them interesting. And assholes and fucking, that's why I'm kind of liking Rios this season, because it's like
I think his story is the most
he's kind
interesting.
of like he's a normal guy experiencing a thing, and he's clearly in love with this girl, and she's clearly attracted to him, and the kid likes him, and he likes the kid. It's all very like heartwarming, and like it's really the only
Yeah,
thing in the
I
season
like
that
it.
I'm rooting
As
for,
goofy
even
as
though
it
I'm
is,
laughing at how absurd it is that he's
yeah,
just
that
like,
he brought
I'm
her on
gonna
the ship.
beam him
And
over to the ship. And imagine a real person's
there's an
reaction
innocence
to,
to it,
without
though.
their consent, being transported to another place. You wouldn't just drop your mug. You would be like,
I mean,
ah!
you'd
But at that
start by
point,
dropping your mug. To be fair,
at
you'd
that,
probably start by that.
yeah, at that point, it's fair to assume that she's kind of well versed in, or for whatever reason she believes in everything that's being told to her. But
No, but
I'll
I
go
mean,
with it
I quite
just for the
like
sake of positivity. But,
I quite like their like that's been the standout to me, like this whole season, like Rios's adventures, um, with like this doctor that's like, she's clearly important because the symbolism, like the, what is it, the butterflies or whatever that she has like on her medical facility are shown later, like in the first episode in the future. They have like the same logos and stuff like on medical things. So
oh, it's like
clearly,
a
or
causality
on
loop or predestination paradox type of thing.
yeah, I don't know what it
I
is.
don't know.
I couldn't.
It's all
I
gobbledygook
don't
anyway.
know. But no, I quite enjoy, like, I think that they have chemistry. And not just like the two adults. I think that the kid has chemistry with like the trio there. The dynamic works quite well. And I think that this story is heartwarming and it's nice. And I don't know if they're gonna bring the kid and the mother, or if Rios is gonna stay behind. I think it makes more sense for Rios to stay behind than for them to like, because I think she's important to like the timeline or some shit. But he can stay behind.
Wouldn't it be
That
interesting
would,
if this was I don't know
he's
if
not
he's.
needed in season 3 anymore. They're not. None of them are needed. in season 3 because they've got the TNG
That's
cast
what I
coming
was
in.
thinking about. Like, how big are their roles? Like, I'm sure they'll be there, but in a reduced capacity. 'Cause
Mm.
if it's promising to be the TNG reunion or the last hurrah, I mean, you got to make room for all the original actors. I mean, one last thing we
Yeah.
want to talk about before we wrap it up because we got an hour.
You did
It's
want to mention Agnes, sorry, Guinan's scream, or you want to gloss over
yeah.
that,
The
move
last
away?
thing. Well, one we already. Let's dismiss the Jurati thing because we already talked about that. And like
Okay.
Seven's like, ah, we're all fucked now. But the one scene at the end that was like just so jarring because, like I mentioned, uh, Guinan is just so abrasive and unlikable, and there's like no attempt on the writing part to. I mean, I like characters with attitude and stuff, but it's like there's a tinge of anger behind it that it's like we get it. You showed us that she's not happy,
Hmm.
but it's like where's the wisdom that I saw in Whoopi Goldberg? I don't want to compare the two actors because I know it's unfair. Like it's just generational thing, and the actor did do her research, but like what she was given, I think was like I'm there to tell a story about summoning a Q because Picard wants to summon a Q. Okay, we're getting somewhere. That's what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Ah, half her like thousands of dollars worth of damage in her bar for fucking nothing. Didn't work. It's like, well, why? It's like, what is this? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you telling me something's gonna happen and it's saying, nah, no, it didn't. And then the FBI guy comes down. I'm like, ah, here it is. This is a Q in disguise. He's somehow masking his Q-ness from Guinan, and he's gonna turn around and be like, snap, or something.
Hmm. That still could be the case.
But then she's like, when she serves him, she's like, I know your type. You drink a thing and read a magazine. I'm like, what? Why you?
She's a
Why can't
bartender.
you?
She
This is a
knows.
cousin. Why you just be nice to him? Like Jesus, you chose to serve him. You least you can do is be like, well, how's your day, sir, or whatever. I don't fucking know. But she's like, I know what you're like. You fucking tie wearing motherfucker. And it's like, no, Guinan, there's no Whoopi Goldberg wisdom. And yeah, I get it. Whoopi Goldberg has got foot and mouth disease, where she puts her foot in her mouth by saying like stupid, ignorant shit every now and then. But I I grew up with her. I loved Jumpin' Jack Flash when I was a kid. So when she showed up in Star Trek, I was like, fuck yeah. Like I thought she was gonna be funny in Star Trek. I remember that, but
Well,
like but she was serious, and I'm like, oh, I like this. This is cool. But it's just
not
when you
not
have Whoopi and then you have her, and then the character's not written well, it don't work.
yeah, that's right. Not to shit on the writing here, but I do think that there's like a complexity and a maturity to the way that Guinan was written in TNG,
Yeah.
and I don't know if they're unable to match that level, like that quality, because they just don't have the capacity to. The people that are writing these episodes, or if it's by choice, they're making her, I guess, a little more uh, obvious or direct or less subtle. But whatever it is, the level is just not there. Like there's a level of writing and a depth to the way Guinan addresses situations
Mm,
and other
yeah.
characters that is not seen in the Guinan that we have on screen, and that is jarring to me. It makes me feel like I'm watching a different character.
And when you think
And
of
when
examples
you
where
do
she's
that, when you
yeah,
do that for Picard, when you change Picard's entire personality somewhat in 20 years, and you can justify that by like, I get that humans become bitter, humans change. um Guinan is like this being, like her father was like 700 years old, so we're assuming that she can at least live 700 years old as well. um I mean, I don't feel like the change would be so radical or so extreme. And again, if it's really the United States of America and their social issues that are pissing you off, leave, go somewhere fucking else. There are other places on earth
yeah.
that, like every place has their problems, but you might at least have like a different outlook and a different perspective on life. I'm pretty sure that if you went to live in a little, a quaint little city in Scotland, you wouldn't be, dealing with the same kind of stuff that you would deal with in like uh, America's borders.
Yeah, she's like literally 10 forward on Skid Row, right? Like, what do you expect? That's what I'm saying. Like, the whole
Yeah.
10 forward thing
Yes.
doesn't make the whole 10 forward thing doesn't make sense because 10
I'm.
forward was the thing about the ship. It's deck 10 forward, and to have a bar in the past. I can understand her in the 25th century
I'm okay with that. That's like a
going to
ref
a place and
place.
having a bar and a 10 forward as like an homage to the ship.
Mm.
That thing doesn't make sense. But also, it's like, okay, you look at Whoopi Goldberg, examples of Whoopi Goldberg when she's been pissed off or like Guinan's fucking serious as hell. When she stabs Q, for example, in the hand, or when she has the rifle behind the thing, and she, like there, it's one of these things where like when you don't mess with Guinan, like she shows it. Whoopi like would do this thing where like she was fucking serious, and you
There's a
make she would
menacing
have
calm
she.
to it.
It was a menacing calm, exactly, and she would have her moment of like, don't fuck with me, and then just go right back to the calm, kind of jovial,
Because
relaxed
like
nature.
you've had the moment, and you're like, okay, so everyone's gonna calm down because like it was menacing enough, right?
And even in the past, when we see her in Times Arrow, she is an she is a slightly more immature Guinan, but she's still got that like
Well,
wisdom
she's
of
running
or
away
she's
from her father, right? Like
yeah
she's
she's yeah she's kind of
hiding
like
out.
yeah she's probably like 120. She's very young. Like basically a teenager in Elorian years, probably, or
Mm.
something like that. But yeah, it's like, and I really don't like the actor who plays her. Nothing wrong with her. I love her personality in the interview. I mean, I was like, why couldn't this come through in the character? And
Mm.
it's like they can. It's like it's an example of an actor having to do it. I mean, they get paid. Who cares? I'm criticizing, but everybody got paid. Everybody's making a good living off of it. It's just the
Well, we hope
screech.
so.
It's the screech. The awkward cough after, which I don't know was meant to be funny, but I laughed at it. Then the shattering of a bunch of shit in her bar, like all of this damage, and she can't summon the Q. And we're supposed I get it. We as an audience are supposed to be like, oh, wow, what's going on there?
Oh my goodness. We're supposed to be
Ooh,
emotionally invested in this. I'm
no.
just sitting there with like a cringe confusion. I'm just like, did they make a? I'm looking at this thing and it's like the last time I saw someone scream in a cringy way, like on camera, was like Laurel Lance and Arrow, and I was trying to remove that from my mind. Like the
Wait,
whole
say again.
is it Laurel Lance? Is that her name in Arrow? The screaming
Oh,
one.
I haven't seen that show in like years, years,
Yeah, it's
years.
like real cringe. It's people screaming. She's like attacking villains with her voice or whatever it is. I don't know. I was like, God damn
Oh,
it!
the
Like I
Black
didn't.
Canary thing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Black Canary. I didn't need another screaming character like to summon things. I don't know. It also just annoyed me that like Guinan is so important that she has the fucking pot of pot of peace here. I don't
It's
know.
it's
It's
it's a jumble of Trek ideas and a shit stew. I mean, I'm a really I really did not expect to be so negative about, and like I said, it's not a reflection of my overall impression of the franchise. I mean, I do think animation is kicking live action's ass right
yeah.
now.
At the
But
moment, I think everyone has kind of come to the conclusion that like animation is kind of like knocking it out of the park, whereas live action is struggling through its things. But I don't know. I don't know what people think of this episode in particular. I have trouble like
I have no
I have
idea either. You're the only one I've talked to about. I mean,
I
I
have
mentioned to
trouble
Marcelo I didn't like it, but he didn't see it yet.
distinguishing these episodes from one another at this point.
It's all just
There's
mush.
there's no beginning and end to these episodes because even heavily serialized shows usually have some sort of like message or point or at least like one sort of like wrap up story happening in each episode, right? Like even the serialized ones. Whereas these ones, it's just like it really just feels like the full edit is like a 10-hour thing, and then they just grab
Chop
pieces
it,
of it and
cut it.
chuck it at you. You know what I mean? It's like take this one.
It's
Do you like it?
they've completely abandoned this traditional story structure, which you can have in, like you said, in serialized television. You can have the serialized element, but what happens is when you have a
You
premise
don't have
that
to
is
abandon interesting writing along with it, though.
I know, but when you have a premise and you stretch it so thin, the only all the writing that you fill it with is
Mm,
literally just filler. Like what can we have happen now? What can we have happen now? And when you look back and you think of a lot of things that went on, it's like, was that necessary, or were they
no.
just things that happened that people wrote, and we just went along with it as an audience because, I mean, they what is it? They were there in the 13th or the 14th or something, and at the 15th is when the launch happens. They've only gone through 24, 26 hours since they've gone back in time, and there's only 3 episodes left, so I guess they could speed things up, but they fucking better because I don't know how people would ask someone like me with, especially with season one, why do you watch? Because I'm a fan and I'm curious, and I'm morbidly curious at this point. Like, what the
Yeah,
fuck
well,
can happen next?
I want to know what happens to the characters that I've enjoyed.
Could end very well. The next 3 episodes could be bangers, man. But it's like Picard, little Picard with his mother and stuff. It's really awkward. He's like, I don't want to be like Daddy. I want to be like you, Mummy.
The
A
kids Moon
nutter.
Knight.
I'm a fucking nutter like you, Mum. In fact,
Yeah, the
our
kids
whole
Moon
family
Knight.
line now has to have like depression here and bipolar there, and it's like this idea of injecting modern, very like this whole rise in mental illness is, I think, almost a direct result of the society we live in, and the over medication by doctors and stuff like is very systemic of like the times. So my imagination always thought that, like, oh, in Trek times, like, they always dealt with their shit. Like, everybody was so cool and calm because they had
Mm,
their shit worked out. And by God, if you wanted to physically do something that you couldn't do and you bottle it all in, go to a fucking holodeck and live out any fantasy you want. How could you not be a
okay,
level-headed
so
person
you're thinking
when
like
you have
Westworld.
access to such future wonders? You know what I mean? It's like, think about me and you living back, suddenly being transported into medieval times, and how fucking miserable and crying and like begging we would be in a matter of 24 hours. Like, this is terrible. And everybody's like, well, this is the way it is. We can survive because we're used to it. But like,
Well, I feel like
but
psychiatrists and
back then they had a
psychologists, I
lot more
don't
mental
know.
problems.
I feel like psychiatrists, psychologists, I don't exactly know the difference here, but like um, professional doctors, I feel like in the future would be, I don't know, like they would have a lot more knowledge of the field and the understanding of like the human psyche or even like just alien psyche as well, like is I guess more widespread, and so people are easier to heal. I guess like it's easier to address and to solve problems, and it's easier to actually help people in the future. And there's no stigma about it. There's no It's not taboo. People address this like oh, I need help. I'm gonna go get help. Like if you're on the bridge for the first time and then like someone gets shot, like a torpedo comes through the bridge and the person sitting next to you at the helm flies through the goddamn you know a screen. It's
Yeah,
like, okay, you might need to talk about that. But maybe today, in the time we live in, especially like in the First World War, PTSD, no one really addressed that. Second World War, it starts becoming a thing nowadays. PTSD is very much an issue that we address and that we talk about because people are more comfortable with also addressing that and people know about. I feel like in the future that would be the same thing. So you don't need as much medication. It's really just dealing with stuff and
yeah,
addressing them.
and and I think, although we've come a long way in psychology and stuff like that, and I'm not saying like medications are bad. I'm saying doctors overprescribe, and it's like it's a totally real thing throughout society for
Well, it feels
years.
easier, doesn't it? Just to
It
give
feels
give,
easier to
give the
say,
person pills, move
and you
on.
know what? If you're somebody who's manic depressive, bipolar, or stuff like that, it's not uncommon for a doctor to like put you through a cycle of fucking pills in the matter of like a certain amount of time, not really considering like side effects and damage and liver damage and so I always thought that like the further we got, it's not that people wouldn't need medication; they could just talk through everything or just like lethargically like deal with problems and stuff, but like through like holodecks or whatever. But it would just be like there would be a better understanding, and you wouldn't have the circumstances the same circumstances or the same problems that would initiate abhorrent behavior in a human being or odd
Mm.
behavior. Or so you'd still have people who had issues, but we would live in a society where we could easily recognize them. Like you said, people nowadays will suffer from things for years, like
Mm.
mental issues and stuff like that, and never seek help and just deal with it, and it never gets any better and whatever. And but I think
I'm pretty sure a
in
lot of
in a
us are
more enlightened
also
society, we'll be more open
oblivious.
about it.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure, like, so there are people that probably know that they have problems but don't want to address them.
yeah,
But I'm sure there's plenty of, I'm gonna say us, plenty of us that maybe we don't know that we have issues.
yeah.
Maybe we have like underlying things and we don't know. But I feel like in the future they would like it would be easier to identify, even if the person themselves they would have an easier time identifying issues when they are there, and then of course all the medical professionals will be able to help them. I don't know why we're talking about this all of a sudden. I guess it ties into the episode because there's like mental health in this episode, so it works.
Yeah, and again about the whole uh, shattering my illusions of the Picard family. Just and I don't want to say normal because normal is such a relative term, but just
Mm.
you know, not not as dramatic. It's like, and I get it. Shows now you talked about like someone you're working with somebody and then they get blasted out of the fucking thing and the force field comes up but you're alive and you witnessed your best friend die or something. You would have
Mm.
issues,
Yeah.
but there's an over examination of mental illness and feeling in the live action Star Trek now. That's just like, okay, you can acknowledge it and stuff, but the thing with the older days, they didn't spend so much time dealing with their feelings because they were officers, and a
Yeah.
lot of you assumed a lot of their issues they dealt with off screen because there was a counselor there. You saw some
Or they would
sessions.
do one episode. They
Oh
would do
yeah,
one
like
episode dealing with a specific traumatic experience.
when they thought
Deanna's
Data
dead
was dead.
sister.
There's a couple of times they thought Data was dead.
Mm.
The one time was Time Zero where they knew he was going to die somehow, and they were all weird about it, and they dealt with those feelings. And then there was the
Mm.
other one where he was missing in the olden village
Bashir
with
and
the
the whole thing
radiation.
about his the things that his parents did. They will deal with that. So like, yeah, there was like
Those are future.
one.
Those are good future issues too, right? Like genetic manipulation and stuff. Like
Yes.
not something that I want to put in Star Trek with soon in the modern times. Like forget all that fucking. They're always falling back on the con genetic, like over and over again. I really every time anything con related or eugenics wars related comes up, I'm just like, I don't even want to acknowledge its existence anymore because
You do realize
they
that they're gonna
fall
do
back on
more
it
and more
so
of that
much.
though.
Yeah, they're
I
falling
feel like
back on
that.
it over and over again.
No, but it's gonna come back even more because now with CRISPR and all of that kind of technology in the
With
real
what?
world, CRISPR,
CRISPR. What's that?
CRISPR,
What's that?
CRISPR is a I don't know how to explain it exactly, but CRISPR is technology in the real world that people are doing that enables you to basically splice and adjust DNA by injecting other elements of DNA into it.
Oh yeah, I know. You're talking about the parallels between the eugenic wars and the real
Yes.
world.
So what I'm
I'm no
saying
no.
is
I'm
because
saying I don't want that in Trek at all anymore. I'm
no,
saying it's
I know what
entirely.
you're saying,
But
but
yeah, we are getting to that point where we're genetically
I'm
fucking with
saying
things
that
now.
because that exists in the real world, I'm afraid that perhaps Star Trek is going to want to address that because they like to mirror what's going on in the real world.
Okay.
So because genetic engineering is going to become more and more a thing, like we're coming to a point where it's like, what color do you want your kid's eyes to be? And you know what I mean?
Who's
And
doing
so
this? Is there been any babies born with this genetic manipulation? Or
no, but they
is this
are
a kit you can get in the mail? What is this? I gotta look this up.
well, yeah, well,
CRISPR.
yeah, well,
What's?
CRISPR, they're making fucking dogs fluorescent and shit, right?
Oh, they're doing pets now. Okay,
They're doing pets, but
I've heard of that. Yeah.
they're not specifically choosing details of like how big do you want your kid's nose to be, that kind of stuff, but they are basically selecting embryos from like embryo pools that they have. It's like, well, these are all the ones. This one is most likely to be like this. This one is most likely to be like that. Which one do you want? We're going with this one. Boom. Um, there are so many like ethical and moral and social everything. So that's a whole other discussion. But the point is, we are in an age where this is coming. It is coming to us. We are in it, and so Star Trek, you know that they're going to mirror, like especially in this age of writers that don't necessarily address things very subtly, where instead of talking about like ice with a metaphor, they literally put a character like
Are you saying they might
in
meld?
direct confrontation.
Are you saying they
No,
might meld the eugenics thing with
no, I
that,
don't.
or create a new kind of thing?
I don't know. I'm just saying that we will have stories. We will have eugenic stories in future Star Trek because they are going to want to address
It's just that Star Trek
the
missed the
reality
mark
of
by
it.
like 30, 40 years. Like they were off by 30, 40 years. Because in the original, it's like the 90s. I don't know.
Doesn't the
I
eugenics
retcon
war
that in my
start?
mind.
When does that happen? Something happens in 2026. What happens in 2026? Is it Third World War or eugenics wars?
It's Third World War, but
Okay.
I could be wrong. Didn't one point in the TOS they mentioned like World War III was in the 90s or something? I don't know.
No, but I think the eugenics
I
wars is in
think
the
the
90s,
eugenics wars
perhaps.
was the precursor to the Third World War, but that happened in 1996. But I don't know. They could have That's the kind of thing I reckon. If you have a Trek history that we've surpassed already, and like the things haven't happened, abandon it as a fucking story element. Don't keep falling back on it and retconning it,
Well,
changing it to fit like every different
we're not in the
show. It's
Star
like,
Trek timeline, right? We're not in prime timeline. Like, the whole thing about like
oh wait, what did
Star
you just
Trek is
say? That's
us.
a, you do what do you mean we're not in prime timeline? What are you saying?
The Star Trek
Trek is
shows a
not our
prime timeline.
future. What?
No, no.
I don't agree with that. I know there's guys that
I
I
don't
think
want to be
Samuel
eating.
at Trek Yards is like the Trek history is not our history. It's like a
Yeah, I don't want
separate
to be
universe
eating
thing.
brown gloop on Mars.
It's pretty bad, right? It's like you're in the dawn. You're almost in
That's
the
some
dawn of the
Halo shit,
25th century, and workers on Mars can't even get a good meal
right? Come on.
with technology that literally generates food out of thin air. That's so stupid. Brown sticky
Come
shit.
on. The Expanse is our future. You know that.
That's actually more realistic, but yeah, that's a more realistic take on the future than Trek is, of course. But I don't know. It's all. I don't know how much more of live action
World
Picard
War
I could
Three goes
take.
from 2026 to 2020 to 2053.
And then First Contact is 2063, right?
Yes, so
First.
it's 10 years after. The eugenics wars are in the 90s, perhaps 92 to 96. So while Tom Paris and Tuvok were gallivanting on Earth and nothing was happening, everything seemed fine. The eugenics wars were happening.
Tom Paris.
Yeah,
What year did
is
they
that
go to?
probably somewhere in the 90s? I'm guessing.
Oh. Yeah, it was 1997, wasn't it? I don't know.
Tom Paris, Earth.
Well, it seems like this conversation is winding down to a close.
Winding down.
We've talked about an hour and a half about a 40-something minute episode of Star Trek. I just hope it gets better. I'm just waiting for Strange New Worlds, man.
Sorry for the
And
negativity, people.
I'm not hoping. I heard with some promotional material that they're hinting at some storylines in Strange New Worlds, and I'm seeing a couple of red flags. One involves the Borg, and another involves going. No, I mean these are potential spoilers, but I doubt it's real. I think it's just it's bullshit promotional stuff. I don't unless I don't know because they do this like thing where they show a bunch of different titles of Strange New Worlds. They have like different designs and animations they cut
Yes.
between.
Yeah.
And one features a Borg cube, and another features a Gorn. And we saw what appeared to be a baby Gorn in one of the trailers. And I'm like,
Okay.
Akiva Goldsman said, he said, we won't break canon unless we break canon, unless we want to.
That
Right.
whole title sequence thing. I think it's just promo material. They had that playing at the convention while we were waiting for the panels to begin, and I do think it was just like spotlighting different art styles, that kind of stuff. I think it's just like Trek related stuff. I don't think it ties into
With
like
the
the show
Borg
at all.
cube and the Gorn, it's like, come on, dude. Why show that in the promotional material for Strange New Worlds, knowing what that is and what that means?
Because
And
I think it was a
let's just say,
convention thing. I
can
think it
I
was
just
just like a
ask?
Star Trek vibed convention thing
I don't
that they
know,
were
but I'm
doing.
gonna ask you if it's real. Now, I'm not. I don't know, but if they
Okay.
do a Borg story and if they do a Gorn thing, would you be opposed to it? If they did it like Enterprise style, where it's like, okay, it works and it doesn't, but I guess it's okay.
Yeah, that's
I
kind of
like the
my,
Borg stuff in Enterprise, by the
I'm
way, but
fine with the Ferengi appearance in Enterprise because I feel like
yeah.
there's enough story element to explain away the fact that it happens. So if they could do like a Gorn hegemony story, where like the Gorn, like we see the Gorn on their bridge, but they're never in direct visual contact with like the Enterprise and Pike and everything, and they like manage to navigate it that way. That's okay. I mean, I guess from a story standpoint, I'm okay with it. It works for me. Do I want them to do that? Not necessarily. I would like them to really just do Strange New Worlds and do their own thing. I don't necessarily, and Enterprise, same thing. I'm fine with the way they did the Ferengi. I think it's fun. I enjoyed the fact that they went back to show the whip and that kind of stuff. Did they need to do that? No. Would I have preferred them to like really do their own thing? Yes. But then like the Ferengi had this kind of thing where you're like, we have to now reconcile um the cringe Ferengi with like the Deep Space Nine Ferengi. So this was kind of a way to balance that out. It was a fun way to kind of address that. I don't feel like we need to address anything when it comes to like the Gorn. And the Borg have been very much addressed, you know, over the years. So I don't think we need to go back to that. If anything, I would much rather see different visual styles of Klingons on screen.
Or it could be a cube-shaped ship, and they're like, "We are control. Resistance is not advised." And it's like the Borg, but it's
It ain't the
not.
Borg, though. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Anyway, all right. Well, we're gonna end it there, folks. I want to thank. I assume Robbie's been watching.
Sorry for spoiling everything, and sorry for being
No.
negative Nancy's, I guess.
Well, he's gonna watch the episode and be like, "Man, it's not as bad as these guys made it out to be. They made it seem like the
There you
worst thing
go.
ever made,
So
but it
we
actually
did
turned
good.
out to be all right." I'm like, well, I'm glad we did our job. Um, Here's hoping for some better Trek in the future. So it had, and like I said, I was talking to with Marcella last time. It was like, yes, it's kind of bad, but there's something around the corner that I'm probably gonna like anyway. And fuck it, even if Strange New Worlds is like, I don't like this too much, or it's okay, or it's mediocre, I'm still gonna be looking forward to Lower Decks. You know what I mean? I'm still gonna
Hmm.
be looking forward to Prodigy because I'm kind of dependent on the shows that don't let me down. Even the second season of Lower Decks, I was at the beginning, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be any good, and then it got better and better toward the end. And I'm like, okay, they know what they're doing. I have faith of the heart.
Exactly,
All
right?
right,
Faith of the Heart.
you can check out Trek on the Tube's coverage of Mission Chicago Star Trek
Indeed.
thing.
Just released my little video there.
Starfleet Boy and Tex Trek also have their coverage. So you guys, I really appreciate you guys doing that. By the way, it's like I can be there without being there. So I don't have to spend all the money you guys did.
Well, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we would like you to attend the next one, if I can even attend the next one. But it would be cool to have as many people as possible that we know.
I'm afraid of Americans, like that David Bowie song. I would go somewhere in Canada maybe, but
Maybe they'll do one in Canada.
I'm not a traveling guy, man. I have huge.
Maybe they'll
I'm
do
like Rene
maybe they'll do
Picard. I don't want to go to. I don't want to go to the United States. I want to go.
maybe they'll do a
I want to go
Toronto
to
one.
Europa.
What
What?
you think? Maybe they'll do a Toronto one. Considering so much Star Trek is filmed in Toronto now, maybe they'll do a
If
Toronto one. A mission Toronto.
if it was the right circumstances, I'd love Toronto. See, like I would love just because I'm familiar with the place. Of
Mm.
3 years going back and forth there from Mississauga when I lived in Mississauga, so I'm familiar with the streets and stuff. Even though it's been like 20 years, I can still picture like all the places there. Right? It's probably different now, but the scary thing about big cities is the tall buildings. It feels like shit's gonna fall down from a high height. That's what
Just don't
freaked
look
me
up.
out with, like,
Just don't look
when
up.
you look up, it's like they're like bending over.
Oh, it's like Doctor Strange kind of thing where like it's folding onto each other.
My cousin's like, don't do that. And it's dangerous in the winter. Shit can fall from very high heights, like ice and stuff. I didn't know that.
Oh damn.
Anyway, thank you, Sean, for joining me, and thank you, Robbie, and whoever else is watching this, not live. And until next time, folks, live long and prosper.